People ask me all the time how to ice a cake, and I'm going to show you how. There are a few really important key steps. One is, if you have a cake plate, you don't want to get the icing on the plate. So what I do is I take pieces of parchment or wax paper and just put it down on the plate. And then we've made Beatty's chocolate cake, everybody's favorite. And then put the first layer of the cake right down on top. So when the cake is iced, you just have to take the pieces of wax paper out and you have a beautiful cake and a clean plate. Just gonna put a little icing right on top. And I use an offset spatula to spread it out. And the key about not getting crumbs in the icing is you always go in one direction. You don't go back and forth. I think we're really tempted to do that. And you push the icing from the top, you'll never get crumbs in it. Okay, and then the second layer, and this is a decision that you have to make. Do you want a rounded top or do you want a flat top? Flat top tends to be a little more professional looking. So that's what I'm gonna do. This is the way the cake comes out of the pan, and I'm gonna turn it over and have a very flat top. So that's trick number 2. And now, icing the entire cake. I start on the sides, and again, always go in one direction. So, just put on a layer, just like that. I'm making a mess here. But the good news is I have parchment paper on the plate, so if I make a mess, nobody will ever know. Okay, I'm just gonna push some of this around to the other side. Nice thing about icing is very forgiving. You can always fill in holes. If the cake cracks, you can cover the cracks. And you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. It's gonna be just as delicious. And now the top. You just wanna push it out from the middle. Don't go back and forth, just in one direction. And you never get crumbs in the icing. Go all the way around and make sure the edge is sharp. If you wanna make it really professional, I'll show you how you heat up the knife, hot water, and then take the water off, and I'll show you what happens. If you just go around and apply it, it'll end up with a smoother, shinier edge. Okay, now I'm gonna show you how to take the paper out. So I take my knife and just run it around the bottom because you don't wanna pull off the icing. Take out one piece, holding my breath, and the last piece. Okay, the last thing is cutting it. Take a slicing knife, and I'm just gonna put it right in the middle. If you wanna heat it a little bit, it makes it even easier. But you wanna use the blade. Don't press down, use the blade to cut it. And you'll find it makes a nice sharp edge. And that's Beatty's chocolate cake. I think it's lunchtime. So a friend of mine said she makes a caprese salad and it's a mess. So I said to her, I know exactly what you need to do, so I'm gonna show you. So the first thing is you wanna take tomatoes and mozzarella that are about the same diameter. So when you lay them down, they look very neat. It's not like a big tomato and a tiny little piece of mozzarella. So this is how you do it. So first you're gonna take tomatoes, and the best way to cut a tomato is with a serrated knife. So I'm gonna just slice it. And also you want the thickness of each, the tomatoes and the mozzarella to be about the same so they look very orderly. I love caprese salad in the summer. It's just so simple, it's so good. And I don't know, I think it's the Italian flag, red, white, and green, but I'm sure somebody's gonna tell me that it's not. All right, here I go. So I've got mozzarella, which I sliced with a regular slicing knife, and tomato, and I'm just gonna do it one and then another. Tomato, mozzarella. The other thing I like to do is if I have round food, I like to put it on a square plate. I just think it looks better. I don't know, that's my thing. And then tomato and mozzarella. Last piece of tomato. I have a few left here. Perfect. Okay, I'll just spread them out so they look right. That's pretty neat, right? Okay, so the next thing is how I season it. And I always put the things that have flavor, that give it flavor, on first. So first I'm gonna put on salt. You don't want the olive oil and the vinegar just like kind of wash away the flavor. And then I'm gonna do pepper. You want to get it into the tomato and the mozzarella. And then the next thing I do is vinegar. So I'm just gonna do a drizzle on each. I'm using red wine vinegar. You can use white balsamic, whatever vinegar you like. But now it's getting really absorbed into the tomatoes. And then after that's all done, then I'll do the olive oil. Just drizzle it right on. And then the last thing I put on is the basil. And you can do it two different ways. You can either do just a whole leaf in each one, and I always put a big piece of basil for decoration, or you can julienne it, and I'll show you how you julienne something. So what I do is I take off the leaves and just stack them up, and then roll them up like a little cigar, and then with a sharp knife, just slice them like that, straight across. And then you can scatter them on top, just like that. I think that looks great. Maybe I'll take these out. I kind of like the julienne one. And that is tomato, mozzarella, and basil caprese salad. I write cookbooks because I love writing them. But my favorite thing is when I get stopped in the street and people say, "You taught me how to cook." I mean, the truth is, I'm not really a trained professional. I learned how to cook from Julia Childs and Craig Claiborne and just doing things over and over again. But I've spent 40 years in kitchens. And what I'm doing is taking the tips that I've learned from those kitchens that you can do at home. So if you have those skills, your cooking is not only going to be better, but you're going to be more confident about it, which I think makes all the difference in the world. I'm going to cook the potatoes and the chicken on the same sheet pan at the same temperature for the same amount of time. My food tends to be home cooking, but with the volume turned up. And so I want people to be able to do that really with confidence that they know it's going to come out exactly the way they want it to. My assistant who does cooking with me, Lydie, when she first came, she loved to cook but didn't know the right way to do things. So when you started out, how would you have cut a carrot?
Definitely straight across.
One of the tips that I always use is that things are garnished with what's in the dish, like the Israeli vegetable salad. It has hummus on the bottom with tomatoes and cucumbers and mint. And so I make sure that I finish it with mint. We always say if something that you've made at home looks great, you say it looks professional. But if you buy something at a bakery and bring it home and it's just fantastic, you say it tastes homemade. So we want our food to look like it was homemade by professionals. So that's what I think this book is about, is to try and show people how they can make something at home that looks and tastes professional.